To UV map the pipes, we'll go through the same kind of process. I'll select this layer here to choose this pipe. And let's go over to the UV editing screen layout. And let's begin by just tabbing into edit mode and taking a look at it. I think we could probably assign a seam to this seam down in the bottom of the pipe. And then I think we'll also need to add a seam around each of the couplings here to split those off. So let's give that a try. I'll tumble around here and select this edge right there. And I don't need, let me zoom in here, I don't need these edges right now, so I'll deselect these. And let's mark a seam here, Control E and mark seam. And then I'll select this edge and I'll Alt Shift select this edge, and let's try and add a seam there as well. Alright, so now we can select everything with the A key, press U and click Unwrap. And that's not too bad. There's a bit of stretching here at the connections, but I think that'll be okay. Let's go back and take a look at another one of the pipes. How about this one here? I'll go to my UV editing view and let's take a look at this one. If I tab into edit mode, we see that we've got the basic pipe, and that's fine. We'll probably want to select an edge here on the inside to hide it from the character's point of view. We're also going to need to split out this top part as well and the connection here. So let's give it a try and see what we can come up with. So I'll press Alt and select this edge. I'll also select this edge here with Alt Shift. And I'm going to go ahead and leave these two edges selected to create a seam there, and that'll open that up. Let's see how that works. I'm going to deselect these edges, and I think all I need to do is just select this edge up on top. So I'll press Alt and Shift and select this edge. And with all of those selected, I'll press Control E and mark seam. Now let's, with the A key, select all of the object and press U and unwrap. And there we go. So let's go back and take a look at the next piece. And that's this large vent piece. So I'll go back to my UV editing view here. Maybe open up the window a little bit more since it's kind of a big piece. And let's take a look at this one. Our best bet may be to just choose the shortest seam, and that would be right here to split out the tube part. So let's see if that'll work. I'll select this edge here, and also I'll probably need to select these edges along the rims of the object. I'm going to press Control E and mark seam, and then I'm just going to hover over this main piece and press the L key, and also over these pieces as well. And let's see how this works. I'll press U and unwrap, and that does not work at all. But you see up here it says object has non-uniform scale. So we're running into the same problem as we were with building. Let's go back to object mode, to our default screen layout, and let's come in here to the property panel. And once again, we can see that our scale is non-uniform. We have rotation here. So let's fix this. With the object selected, let's press Control A and choose rotation and scale. And that should clean that up. So now if we go back to our UV editing layout, we can take a look at this again. Hover over this, press L, this as well, and now press U and unwrap. And that looks a little better, but these are kind of warped now. Let's try and get a sense of what's going on here. I think what we have is the main piece here, the main part of the tube. We have the bottom rim, and we have the rim and the inside of the vent. So that I don't think is going to work. I think we're going to get too much stretching and strangeness in our textures here if we do this. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and select this back edge right back here. And I'm going to place a seam here. And let's see how this works. I'll press U and unwrap. And that's getting a little bit better. Now we could rearrange our seams and unwrap all day, but what we really need to know is, will this particular configuration stretch our seams? And the only way to really know that is to put a test texture on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag a corner here in the UV editing view and drag this down so I can open up a node editor window. So I'm going to switch from UV editor to node editor here. I don't need this panel here, so I'll press the N key. And one thing to remember is that materials are assigned to objects, but textures are applied to materials. So to add a test texture to this, we're going to need to create a material for it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new material here in the node editor. This object is selected, so it'll create the material on that object. I'll click New, and there is our new material. Now we need to create a new texture for this material. This is going to be a temporary material, one that we'll just use as we're UV mapping. So I'm going to change the name to checker, because it's going to be a checker pattern. And then down here in the UV image editor, I'm going to create a new texture by clicking New, and I'll call this checker as well. And for the generated type, I'm going to switch it from blank to UV grid. And if I click OK, now I get this checker pattern that we can use to test our UV maps. So I need to add that texture now to this material that has been applied to our object. So to add a new node here in the node editor, I'll press Shift A, and then come over here, say add an image texture. And if I move the mouse over, there it is, and then I'll just click to add that node. Now I'm going to click on the little menu item here, and now I can choose the available textures in the scene, and I'll just choose checker. And now I need to add the color channel to the color channel of the material. Now if I come back over here and switch the shading mode from solid to texture, I can see the texture on the object. Well, let's go ahead and UV map the slats here now. I'm going to tab back into edit mode and deselect everything, and then I'm just going to hover over these slats and press the L key to select them individually from the rest of the pipe, and then I'll press Shift H to hide the unselected. Now for these, it would be kind of a hassle to go through and mark seams for every single object here. Instead of doing that, what I think we can do is just select them all, press the U key, and let's choose this Smart UV Project. If I click that and then click OK, it will lay those objects out in a very uniform way, which I think will work for these objects. All right, let's bring back the rest of the object with Alt-H. And now you can see that we have quite a bit of overlap here. As we saw before, the way to solve that would be to press the A key to select everything, and then we can press Control A to average island scale and Control P to pack islands. So I'll press Control A and then Control P. And that packs everything into the 0 to 1 space in the UV editor. Now for the light fixture, let's go back and take a look at this. I'll tab back into object mode and come back to the next layer here and center it up with the period key on the numpad. Let's take a look at how we might mark the seams here. I can tab into edit mode and let's take a look. Once again, I think I will mark a seam back here at the base. Control E and mark seam. And then I don't think we're ever going to see the top of this object. We'll mainly see it down from below like this. So I think we could mark a seam up here. I'll press Alt and select this edge. We don't need this and this, and we could probably deselect these as well here. And now I'll press Control E to mark a seam there. This piece, let's go ahead and break out here. So I'll select this edge at the top of the fixture and press Control E and mark seam. And we could probably split this out here as well. So I'll select an edge here and mark a seam there. And I believe that's about it. Let's try this. So I'll go back to the UV editing view, select everything, and press U and unwrap. Now we can go ahead and apply that checker material to this object to see how we're doing. I'll press this pull down menu, choose the checker material, and there it is. So we can see that there's some pulling here, but honestly it's this part that we're most concerned about. But if I look back here, you can see that there's some stretching back here, and that's pretty ugly. We need to do something with that. So for this, I'll try and add an edge up here, or a seam up here, and press Control E and mark seam. And now let's try this and see how it works. Press U and unwrap. And that looks quite a bit better. So in the next video, we'll focus on UV mapping the walkway.